The Tarrant County Master Gardener Association has partnered with the Tarrant Regional Water District to encourage water conservation. TRWD maintains 4 area lakes and pipelines needed to provide surface water to local water treatment plants so they can clean that water to meet drinking standards for our communities. They also work with many cities in Tarrant County, such as Fort Worth, Arlington, Mansfield, and many others, to provide water conservation programs to the community. Conservation is an important water supply strategy to help meet the needs of our growing population. There are currently 2.3 million people living in Tarrant County, and this is expected to double over the next 50 years. At SaveTarrantWater.com, you can sign up for free weekly watering advice custom to your location. If you're a resident of Tarrant County, you can sign up for a free sprinkler's checkup where a licensed irrigator comes to your home, provides a comprehensive evaluation of your system with recommendations to reduce water waste. There's also an event calendar where you can find information about future classes and workshops. So be sure and check out SaveTarrantWater.com to sign up for their free services.
We're talking about trees in North Texas. Thanks for joining us. The title of this presentation is "What is that tree?" Because a lot of us are driving in parking lots, driving past somebody's house, and we see a tree, and we're like, "Well, what is that tree?" And every season, trees exhibit different characteristics. So it's springtime; they can be full of blooms, and in the fall they could be in a more like the leaves are turning and they're becoming more dormant, and that type of thing. So we're going to talk about the different types of trees that we can grow here in North Texas that really add character to your landscape. So some of the common trees that we probably all have and or had at one point in our yard is a magnolia. They're very common in new construction. Bradford pear, which is the lower one. It has beautiful color, but Bradford pears are really corotic, and they are multi-branching off of the main trunk, and they rot between the branches, and the branches fall off. So we're not really recommending those anymore. Obviously, we have live oaks that people have, and they really struggle with what to grow under a live oak, and it's really difficult to grow things because they don't lose their leaves during the winter, and so there's very little filtered sunlight that comes through a live oak. And then we have post oaks, and on my property I have 65 post oaks, and they're wonderful trees. They provide a lot of great shade. They don't turn a very pretty color in the fall, but they do drop their leaves. They're deciduous, so I can grow quite a few things under them, and they're very hardy. A post oak, however, is not a tree that you're going to find at a nursery. They don't transplant well. If one pops up on the ground in your property, then you're very lucky, but you're not going to find them as landscape trees very rare, very often. And then the Yopon holly, so many of us have Yopons. We have males and females. The females are going to have the berries on them. I have one on the corner of my home that is half berried and half not berried. And that means, and it's a multi-trunk tree, so they put multiple seedlings together, and one's male and one's female, and I find that to be really interesting. But those are really common trees. We're not going to talk about those today. We're going to talk about all the other wonderful trees we can plant to add color and interest to our garden. So when we see spring flowering trees, we see here we have a cherry, and these are all pink flowering spring trees. So we have a cherry, a peach, a redbud, Mexican buckeye, and a saucer magnolia. Now, the cherry and the peach are fruit trees, and fruit trees are sometimes very difficult to grow in your own landscape. If you want them for fruit, you have to really study hard on the accommodations that you need to make for fruit trees and how to treat fruit trees for insects and pests. But if you want them for color, they're and foliage, then you can plant one and not have to worry about the fruit. It will fruit, but it just won't be very good fruit. And then the red bud, we have a lot of those in North Texas. They're awesome. There are different varieties of red buds. Mexican buckeye, they bloom in the spring, and I'm going to show you a slide on a Mexican buckeye where in the fall they turn a magnificent color. So that's here the Mexican buckeye is used in a median at a parking area, which is strange, but they did, and it's really pretty in the spring. And then one of our earliest blooming flowers, and sometimes gets hit with a late early frost. When I say early frost or late freeze, in March, the saucer magnolia will start blooming sometimes in February and March, and it can get hit by our freezes. There are varieties that will bloom a little later. There are many varieties of saucer magnolias. I have a Jane magnolia that has a dark, dark purple flower, and it blooms later in like March, when end of March, April, when we are past our freeze dates. But the traditional saucer magnolia that I have most years gets zapped by the freeze before before it can really flush out and bloom. So let's talk about this Mexican buckeye. It's deciduous. Deciduous means they lose their leaves in the winter, so it'll look like sticks. I have mine growing more as a bushy tree and not treed up, just like in this picture. So you have different views. You have the flowered stem in the spring, and there's a distant picture of that. The flowers always come out before the leaves, and then the leaves come out, and then we're green all summer. And then in the fall, if we have the right accommodations weather-wise, it'll turn a beautiful color for your fall landscape. So mine is about 12 feet tall and is about 8 to 9 years old. The seeds on a Mexican buckeye are poisonous. So if you have dogs in your backyard or dogs in the area and who like to chomp on things, that can be a problem. So poisonous seeds. Then we have the saucer magnolia. And my friend has a house in Panama Beach, Florida. She sent me a picture of this beautiful tree in her next door neighbor's yard, and she goes, "What is this?" Well, so they grow everywhere from Louisiana, Florida, all the way up to maybe the Indiana area. They probably grow in Indiana, but if we have a problem with freezes in Texas, I'm sure they have a problem with them there. So there are different varieties. Of course, again, beautiful spring flowering tree. The flowers come out first, and then the foliage comes out. So you can see on this picture on the left where there's green foliage and a little bit of flowering. That's remnant flowering. That's not flowers that are just coming out. But it's beautiful, and I recommend looking into the other varieties like Jane. There's a Mary, there's a Kay. There's 50 different varieties of a saucer magnolia tree. They tolerate part sun. They do best with a canopy of post oaks, that type of thing, and they do require some watering. Then we have the Oklahoma redbud. We have a Texas redbud. We have a Oklahoma redbud. There are a variety of redbuds. I prefer the Oklahoma redbud because it's a really sharp fuchsia flower, very, very dramatic, whereas the Texas redbud is paler in pink. Most redbuds prefer to be under a canopy of trees in the South. They have a hard time surviving the there are several varieties that really just wither out by July and August in Texas if they're not under a canopy of trees because of the heat. And so they'll start dropping their leaves early and such, but they make a beautiful landscape tree. So if you have a shady area under some deciduous trees, I would recommend them. Mexican plum, this is a pretty tree. Unlike the Bradford pear, it is not as susceptible to leaf breakage and such. It does come up a single trunk and then has multiple flares of stems, but it's not as inclusive. The trunk and limbs are not as inclusive in trapping water. So Mexican plum is beautiful in the spring, and then look at what it looks like in the fall. It has this beautiful red tint foliage. So when we're planning our landscapes, we really want to think about the contribution to our landscape in color and texture. And so color in the spring, texture in the fall. And if you're a transplant and you're used to fall color, you might want to pick a tree such like this that will present some fall color in your landscape, because a live oak is not going to, and a post oak is not going to. Then we have an eastern dogwood. Dogwoods do grow here. They're an understory tree. They do not like to be out in the full sun in Texas. They do like their feet wet and moist. So hit or miss with us with our summers. They are a beautiful tree, pink and white. So here we have white, beautiful bracts around the flowers in the spring. And then we have the beautiful green foliage for the summer. And then we have the foliage that turns in the fall. And then the berries. And birds love to eat the berries. We don't see a lot of dogwoods in our landscapes because we have so much drought. But if you happen to have a very shady area that maybe has a little bit more moisture from ground runoff, then it might be a good option for you. There is an evergreen dogwood, and I have seen these in just a few places. You can tell that it kind of looks like a dogwood. It's the leaves will stay on the tree over the winter. The fruit from the tree is green in the summer, and then it turns a color in the winter. So it's a very different type of dogwood than the eastern dogwood. It does need more water. I think we're going to see this type of tree more in a botanic garden than in the average person's landscape. But it is an option. It will grow here. Now we have a rising sun redbud. So this is a different redbud than the Oklahoma. This one can actually handle full sun. If it gets a little dappled shade in the afternoon, it would be happy. It's fast growing, and it's to me it's a unique tree because in the spring it has these beautiful pink flowers, and then in the summer and fall it will have these orange and green leaves, which are opposite on the color scale to the pink. They don't go together, and it's to me it's like a designer mismatch, but it's a really cool tree, and if you have more full sun than you do shade, I recommend a rising sun redbud. Then we have a Texas mountain laurel, which is extremely hardy to our conditions. It is very drought tolerant. It's evergreen, keeps its foliage all summer, winter. In early spring, it will pop off these beautiful blooms that smell beautiful. They're then it will produce these seed pods. They're very hard to root from a seed. Those seeds have to be scarified, meaning you have to break the seed open like a bird would have to break it, the shell off of the seed, the pulp off of the seed in order for it to root. It's not one that is invasive at all in your garden. The thing about it is it grows so slow. It's the slowest growing tree that I know of in Texas. It will grow maybe 6 inches a year. It's just tremendously slow. So if you're older like me, you might not get a little one, you might get a big one so you can enjoy it as more of a more established tree in your garden. And it's a beautiful addition if you need some evergreen and a pop of color in the spring. So then we have Eve's necklace, which is a very unique tree. You can see the name comes from the beads of seeds that hang down from after it has bloomed and then the flowers have been fertilized. The berries hang down. This is a deciduous tree. It will lose its leaves as well. It's a great landscape tree. It is not good near a patio because those berries are very dye heavy, so they will stain your patio or your driveway. It's a pretty tree sort of in the back of a flower bed. Has beautiful blooms in the spring. It likes part shade to full sun, and it's a little bit more drought tolerant than, say, your dogwood or that type of plant and tree. This is one of my favorite trees. It's a smoke tree, and I have a neighbor down the road that has one around his pool. I have never been to the pool to actually see it, but I knew that's what it was. I had identified it several years ago, and I love the look. It's just this bright maroon color. So if you're an Aggie fan, you might want to plant one because it's very maroon. It's drought tolerant. It handles full sun. It just adds this whole soft element to your landscape, and then the blooms come off kind of like smoke. You can see in the top right corner picture, and I just think that it's a great addition. So a lot of people will put a Japanese maple in to get this look, but this is much hardier than a Japanese maple. They can get pretty tall, so you do have to prune them, but they add just such an element to your landscape. So now we're talking about trees for fall color. Now, these two pictures, I'm sure were not taken in Texas. And those of us who may be transplants to Texas really do miss the fall color. And I just wish more of our landscape companies would really promote the trees I'm going to talk about in order to achieve some fall color in people's yards. The post oaks aren't going to do it. The mountain laurel's not going to do it, but this tree will do it. This is a ginkgo tree. This is a beautiful landscape tree in the summer, spring and summer. And then in the fall, it turns this magnificent gold. And it's just absolutely beautiful. It's a showstopper in your yard, and it takes full sun. Uh, it has an average growing height. It does require some watering. However, there is one that is outside of somebody's fence down the road from me. It must have grown from a seed, um, and it has survived our droughts and produced every year. It's just a beautiful tree, and it really doesn't belong to anybody because it's outside of somebody's fence. The thing about the ginkgo tree is that you should only buy a male. Do not buy a female. The female have a fruit on them, and when the fruit rots, it smells like manure, and it is very pungent. And most landscape companies will not sell females; they only sell males. But isn't that interesting? It's just extremely pungent. I don't know what the thought was when somebody created this tree, as in somebody from above, because the pungent odor of the rotting fruit must be a deterrent of some sort, as it is with almost all animals and trees and plants. So, but it's a beautiful tree. I was just in France and I saw like a 300-year-old ginkgo tree. It was just absolutely beautiful. As in the King's Garden near the Louvre. It's just a beautiful, big, huge ginkgo, and I wish I could see it in the fall. I bet it would be just absolutely gorgeous. Chinese pistache is a landscape tree that you may have in your garden already or in your yard. A lot of builders are putting those in. They're kind of a fast-growing tree, so they've enjoyed them for that. They have a really pretty fall color to them, and the left picture kind of shows how it's starting to turn before it drops its leaves. They'll take the full sun. They can handle just basic landscape watering. They're soft and fluffy, and they add a lot of texture to your yard. So that's definitely a tree that'll give you some pop of color in the fall. A Possumall holly is really unique because looks just like a holly all year until the winter, and the leaves drop off and you have these beautiful berries. I like to see them in medians. I like to see them in small landscapes where they're treed up, like on the left photo, and they have these beautiful red berries. The birds will come in and they'll snatch up the berries come January, February, but it's a nice bright color. And then on the right side, the top right, you'll see where it just is a green shrub the rest of the year. And it just adds a lot of texture and relevance to your landscape. We have your red oaks. There's red oaks and there's shoe-marred red oaks. Red oaks are beautiful trees to add to your yard. They are very upright. They're gorgeous. They grow very tall. They do drop their seeds, and they do have a lot of sucker growth on the bottom, little seedling growth. But you can't ask for prettier fall foliage in Texas. This is a tree that survives our drought, likes full sun, and then it will turn this amazing red in the fall. And hopefully we'll be seeing that soon. One way to tell if you have a red oak tree is that on an oak, like a post oak, it looks more like a mitten. On a red oak, you have really pointed lobes on the leaves. So red oaks are the only only oak that have a pointed lobe on their leaf. Bald cypress tree. I see these quite a few. I've seen these in landscapes. When they're near water, they like to send knees up in the ground, as you can see in the far right, because the water chokes out the roots, and the roots are looking for air. it's just a unique trait to this type of tree. If you plant it in a landscape where it's not necessarily next to water, and it's not sitting next to like a drainage area, then the needs tend to be less invasive, but it may still send up leaves. Uh, in the fall, it turns a brilliant red. It may only be for a week or two, but it's this rusty color, and it just looks amazing when you see that in a landscape and or in a median or something like that, where it's near a my doctor's office has some around their parking lot, and they're very, very pretty. So it adds fall color. Japanese maples, a lot of Japanese maples are they come out in the spring with a bright color, bright color foliage. In the summer, they turn green, and in the fall, they have a period, just like a lot of other trees, where their sugars slow down and they produce a beautiful fall color of another bolt of purple or red or whatever the maple is. So you can't go wrong with the Japanese maple. They're deciduous. Some can, like this bloodgood, can handle more sun. Some like less sun, and they definitely need water. They cannot be in a drought landscape. Some maples can grow just to be 8 to 9 feet tall, Japanese maples, and then some will grow to be about 20 feet tall, as this one will. Here's another unique Japanese maple. It's called a red bark maple, and it produces multiple color options. It has red bark, very extremely red in this left picture with the green foliage coming out in the spring. And then in the fall, it'll produce this amazing color transition of the leaves for fall foliage. Very, very pretty. I have seen several of these in landscapes, but not a lot of them. I think that they're a great addition to around a patio. Then we're getting into more common trees. Lacebark elm. It's a beautiful tree. It has lacy bark on it. It makes a great shade tree. The problem with a lacebark elm is that it has many, many seeds, and they fall and they will produce seedlings in any kind of climate. They're just notorious for seedlings. So I only recommend them in a grassy area where you can mow the seedlings. I do not recommend a lacebark elm anywhere near a flower bed where all of those seeds are going to fall into your flower bed, and you're going to be out there for hours and hours pulling the seedlings up. But in the fall, the top right corner picture, that is what it looks like in the fall. Brilliant yellow, orangey yellow. So again, a green tree all summer provides great shade, and then in the fall it provides the texture of the bark, and then it has the beautiful yellow leaves that will soon fall off. We have a river birch tree, and I see these, and some people I've seen plant them in a drought tolerant landscape. And when you hear the word river birch, that kind of tells you it's a tree that likes to live near a river. It likes to live near a water source. It likes to live near a stream or a flood zone. It doesn't necessarily like to live in a xeriscape or a drought tolerant landscape. Even though it looks like it should, it does not. And so I've been watching these trees down the road where the people have put them in a more of a xeriscape desert type landscape. And I'm just watching to see how long they're going to survive. This too is deciduous. It loses its leaves. What I like about this tree is I like it when it's a multi-trunk, not a single trunk. Just on the picture on the left where four trunks are coming up. I like it for its bark, its interest because it's shaggy type bark. I like it for its fall color, and it makes a brilliant yellow color, just as we see on the left and on the right. It's just so nice. It can get tall. They can get to be about 30 feet tall. We have a sycamore tree. I've seen more and more of these planted. They have them at the Grapevine Botanic Garden out in the parking lot. They're a beautiful tree, very straight trunk, um, grow tall, provide wonderful shade. They are an average growing height. They have a pretty interest in their bark or lack of bark. It shaves off. It's really, really pretty. And it provides this beautiful fall color. So again, another way to add color to your landscape. So that we have other trees that grow in our landscapes. And I know a lot of people in Texas are scared of mesquite trees, but here's a beautiful landscape that has a mesquite tree around the patio. I know people will say it drops sap and such, but it doesn't appear that they're trying to sit too much on, well, there is a patio table, but but it's flows with the wind. It's really a nice accent to this garden. So that's an option. Weeping willow, let's say you do live near a water source or a drainage ditch or a little creek. A weeping willow would love to live there because its roots will stay wet. We have a little trouble with these because we have such a drought in the summer, but they are a beautiful tree if you have the right environment. They definitely need landscape watering. They're fun. We used to swing on them when we were kids in Tennessee. It was a lot of fun. They're beautiful. Japanese black pine tree. They're very dense and thick. They kind of look like a woolly bear. They are a great accent to a landscape in a flower bed. They stay green all year, so it adds some softness to your landscape during the year. They may suffer just a little bit with our 110-degree weather and our drought because these grow really, really well in the Northwest, but they will grow here and they're handle our full sun mostly. So, it's a slow growing tree. So if you buy a small one, it may take 10 to 15 years to get this big. Tulip poplar tree. I've seen these in our landscapes here in Texas recently. I saw them a lot in Tennessee. They have this beautiful flower that comes out in the spring. They're a great upright tree, shade providing, wonderful tree. They need ample landscape watering, and they can handle our full sun as well. But they're a tall tree. And then here's a catalpa tree. We have some in our house, and they're really a fun tree. I call them Dr. Seuss trees because they kind of grow like a Dr. Seuss tree that he drew in his books. But they have a tulip flower that blooms all summer. Hold on a second. So the tulip flowers bloom all summer, but it molts all summer. It loses its leaves all summer. Ours were by our driveway and very, very messy. And I have a friend who has a beautiful one, and she has it out in her lawn, and it's so much better to be out in the lawn where you're mowing and you can mow all those leaves in and mulch them in. because on the driveway it just drops leaves like crazy. And that's just the way it is. But it's a really unique tree. It's available, and it adds a pop of color and interest to your landscape. So let's get planting. We've talked about trees. So you're going to choose a location in your landscape. Do you want a statement tree, something that's small, or do you want something that's going to grow to be a large shade tree? So plan that out. Do you want it to be evergreen, or do you want it to lose its leaves? Spring blooms, fall color. We talked about quite a few of those. And you want nature to water it, which nature didn't water from July to October. So I don't know that anything would have it will survive without, unless it was a cactus. So you do have to plan to have supplemental water in those 3 months in Texas. But the rest of the year, if you're not planning to water with a sprinkler system, choose your tree wisely. So when you plant your tree, you want to plant it to where the root flare is showing. So in this picture here, I have the flare of the tree. And so you definitely want to leave the flare exposed when you plant the tree. You do not want to plant all the way up to the top of that flare. The tree needs to be able to breathe correctly. It will rot. The flare will rot if you plant it underground, and then your tree will fall over and die. So that's just the way trees are made. They grow in nature that way. If you go look at a tree that's growing that nobody planted, like my post oaks, they're growing just like that with the root flare above the ground. When you go to purchase a tree, you're going to look for trees that do not have exposed roots at the top of the soil, have an ample root ball for its size, sometimes the size of its pot. Sometimes they have little bitty pots and they have a very tall tree, and you're wondering, okay, well, how long has that tree been in that pot? And you want to make sure it looks proportional. Sometimes you can pull the tree out of the container and look to see if the tree roots are wrapping around. If they're wrapping, you don't want those. That means it's been in that pot a long time. When you go to plant a tree that has wrapping roots or girdling roots, you're going to want to cut those and force them to not girdle anymore. Inspect the tree to make sure all the limbs are healthy and there's no wounds or scrapes or tears or bends, half broken limbs. And then if you want a single trunk tree, this is very important. Look for how straight up it is, how the single trunk goes straight up and maybe doesn't branch off to one side, that type of thing. So you just really want to look for the straightness of that. If you want a multi-branching tree, then you're going to want to look to make sure there's no real sucker growth or whatever in the root ball that's coming up, and you have 2 or 3 primary limbs. So that's what you are going to look for. So that concludes our presentation. If you have any questions, you can call our help desk, and the phone number is right there if you want to take a snapshot of that, and or email us at the email that is listed there. So I hope you enjoyed that and learned something about trees. And so Dick is going to open it up for questions.
Okay, and everyone is unmuted, so you can either raise your hand, or if you have questions, just ask Wanda. I don't see any in the Q&A, so
okay.
if you have questions, feel free to ask Wanda.
Any questions?
Well, Mary Lou said great talk.
I'm Mary Lou. How are you? I know her. Yeah. Well, I hope so everybody learned something about a tree that they hadn't heard before. There's any other questions, comments?
Okay, here's one.
Rusty? Yeah. Thank
Yeah,
you.
yeah. Sandy Johnson. Can you ask your question?
Well, Rusty says thank you for the information. You're welcome, Rusty. I hope you can go find a tree you like.
Can you unmute, Sandy? Nancy, can you unmute her?
I'm clicking on it, but I don't. Is that Sandy Johnson?
Yeah.
Yeah, it shows that she's asked to unmute, but that'll be on her end.
Yeah, some of them say allow to talk. So I see you go down, the others, yeah, they just have to unmute themselves, I guess.
But she can go ahead and type in her question if she can't
Oh,
get
sure.
it.
Oh, sure.
Well, this is a perfect time of year to be planting trees, especially here in North Texas, and maybe go out to the nurseries and see what they have, and get yourself a new tree. Thank you guys for joining us.
Yeah, thanks everybody for joining us and hope to see you again. It's one of our evening presentations.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Oh, what would you say about an ash tree, Sandy? I am not a fan of an ash tree in North Texas. I mean, there are some, and people do have them. Mostly botanic gardens will have some, but we now know that the emerald ash borer beetle is in our area, and that is the beetle that wiped out all the ash trees in the Northeast. And so I would personally stay away from an ash tree. And Dick, what would you say?
I totally agree.
Yeah, we don't have a rampant infestation of emerald ash borer, but we also don't have a huge collection of ash trees in our area. But so you would be one of the few to own an ash tree that an emerald borer would might want to come to. So I just don't recommend it for our area.
Yeah, they started in the Lake Worth area, but then they moved on down. So
yes, Rusty, this is the time to plant trees. We plant them in October, November, and you can plant them again in February and March in Texas. But it's really nice to get them in the ground before the winter.
very important to keep them watered.
Yeah, and keep them watered. So, well, thank you, everybody.